So the broad strokes here is that the U.S. was going to implement 50% tariffs on Canada for all of the imported goods from Canada. And obviously, a large percentage of Canadian exports go to the United States. So Mark Carney and Trump were actually on last-minute negotiations leading right up to the deadline, trying to get this all worked out. This headline here from CBC, this is from the 17th, the day before this all finalized. Carney working on last-minute tariff negotiations, delicate, intense, as this is calling out. But obviously, there's a lot of negotiation going on throughout the week leading up to this. As we all kind of know. To move over here on this next slide, Canada notably is one of the few observers of Pax Silica. What does that mean? They're not actually in Pax Silica. They're just kind of sitting there saying, hey, we'll watch, we'll monitor what's going on, we'll be maybe invited to certain meetings, things like that, but they're not officially in Pax Silica. So you might view this as they're kind of playing the waiting game, trying to see what happens. There's obviously the China's World Artificial Intelligence Cooperation Organization. We need a better acronym for that. WACO, I guess.
WACO.
I don't like that though. Reminds me of something going on in Texas.
There's a joke. No, it's not even fun to joke about that. Like Waco.
Yeah, it's like it's just a bad acronym, but
bad vibes.
Yeah.
All the way around.
But regardless, Canada is not in WACO or in Pax Silica as of right now. I think, Matt, they're really viewing this as, wait and see. Let's try to talk about certain negotiations, try to get certain deals done before we make a commitment one way or the other. Which then brings us over here. Matt, I'm going to let you take over this part, but you found this. Canadians and Mexicans viewing China more positively than the U.S. The change is very clear from 2002 to 2026. You're just seeing this consistent downward decline versus Mexico, versus China, where you're seeing this continual upward increase in kind of that favorable viewpoint, which kind of points to where those political leanings are starting to move towards.
Okay. All right. So I'll pick up the reins from here. So think about Canada right now. There's been some developments that are just head scratching right in the last few years. Like why is Mark Carney kind of installed would be the right word as the PM? Like they had to make an exception for him, right? You have to be a member of parliament. Like traditionally you've had to been a member of parliament in their governance system to run for office, to hold the PM office, and
right.
he didn't. So like rules were bent specifically to get Mark Carney in, and then you just you see that elbows out from the Canadian side, 51st state floated by Trump. And you're like, what's going on here? There's something much bigger. In my point of view, so Cameron and I are working on building out more research and analysis on the Pax Silica initiative. There's more to come there. One of the things that stands out, so the critical supply chains, you start at the base level, like think about the collateral in the system, the most low value economic good that then builds up towards something much higher value. You start with raw commodities like silicon or Canada's oil and gas resources, like Canada's hard resources. Those are the base of the supply chain, and then you work yourself up to that, and you get semiconductors, GPUs, etc. But it's going to be really hard for Pax Silica to go the distance and become, an American-led kind of economic order for the 21st century without Canada in play. Now, at the same time, you see Canada reaching out, becoming more and more friendly, it seems, with China, the CCP, and Karen, as you mentioned, the WACO, WAICO, terrible branding here. These are all brand new. They need much better name. Like we used to have acronyms from these people that made a lot more sense, or maybe it was just because we're used to them. The UN, the IMF, WHO, whatever. That I guess they're losing it because WACO just isn't up to par. All right, but anyway, so those base layer resources. You're already seeing countries like look at the Pax Silica map. You've got Chile, other South American nations, like where a lot of these resources are for supply chains. Zoom in. My resolution's not good. Is Is Argentina in there?
Argentina, yep.
Yeah, that's huge. Like Argentina plus Chile, that's massive. You got Australia. If you add Canada into this orbit, it's pretty resource loaded, right? So you've got pretty much everything you need within these member states. Um, World AI Cooperative Organization, they have work to do. They need to build people in. But what I see happening here, right? This U.S. Canada trade negotiation or this deal, I see the power factions behind, uh, the country we call Canada today, aka, by statute or formally known as British North America, right? This power faction, and really, if you want to see where it materializes, it's like look at Brookfield, private equity, right? Or it's like essentially Canada's state champion in the cross-border capital private equity industry. You can kind of see the signs of where all the dots connect. All right, so
That might be a good spot for us to kind of jump one slide ahead, actually, to just start talking about those dots connecting. I think. What do you
oh,
think?
yeah. Do you want to go in the insurance play
Yeah,
or
exactly. Because
yeah?
I
Okay,
think what we've set up here, I think that for our audience here, we were going to do another slide that just shows that final negotiation has
yeah,
passed with U.S. and Canada. I think we all have heard that headline now, but I think what you're talking about, Matt, is super important, and I think we should talk about
yeah.
these kind of points you're putting together on the map here.
All right. So you should we go to slide 11. So these
Yep.
stories we're seeing pop up, like Mark Walter, seems like out of nowhere, right? For Joe Sixpack, this is the guy who owns Dodgers and then uh, bought the Los Angeles Lakers last year from the Bus family.
Yep.
That's how you know this figure, right? On the back end, like his core business is running Guggenheim Partners. There's a lot of insurance companies involved. Um, this is connected into the cross-border capital game. The tell here that I see, you saw like there's a need for Mark Walter and his empire. Like they need to raise liquidity, right? So that's where you see the sale. Um, I don't know that you would call it fire sale, but he did need to raise cash. He does need to get
Yeah.
liquid. Who he did business with as the counterparty, Joshua Kushner, Jared Kushner's brother, son-in-law of the president. That's kind of a tell here. Like if you're looking where different investment groups or uh, notable figures, um, key pieces on the chessboard. Um, it's it's a tell when you see some of these people doing business with each other. So obviously, where Jared Kushner lines up, like which side of the board or which side of the boardroom he's on in the negotiation process. Would be aligned with Scott Bessent. The counterparty here, we'll get into it, but the prize is the Canadian natural resources, that business franchise, working it into this bigger business development project that's being built out, Silica, right? And who comes in as, which spot on the cap table, who's the managing partner, who's a junior partner, et cetera. Ultimately, everybody's going to fall in line and know their place. All right. I don't know if Mark Walter, cross lines from one side to the other, but by choosing to sell it to the Joshua Kushner group, it's kind of a signaling to me that he's doing what he has to do to survive and enter into this new coalition. Now, the other one in the sports world that's showing up that I find a little bit more. Paper trail, let's just call it that, and like hard evidence to where these threads lead is Phoenix Suns owner Matt Ishbia. And I'll just say this, like this isn't a sports podcast, but if his management competency is on par, like with the degree that the Phoenix Suns have been operated under his ownership tenure, which I think began in 2022 or 2023, it's been pretty crummy performance. So let's hope that's not a true indication of his, let's just call it management acumen. Um, but background here, United Wholesale Mortgage is the market share leader in the United States wholesale mortgage originations, 44% market share. They kind of got their position, and I'm going to foot to a lot of this analysis, just from what I've read, Christopher Whalen through his blog, the Institutional Risk Analyst, putting together. Um, a lot of the pieces and who stepped in as backstop are signaling where those connective financial ties may have lined up in terms of support in the past. All right.
Yep.
So for background here, UWM had like truly a disaster of an earnings call. Like on the Q3 earnings call a couple of weeks back, um, the share price fell by almost 49%. The company suspended its quarterly dividend
Yep.
and announced new financing from Oaktree Capital Management. Now, notably, we'll get into this. Oaktree is 100% owned by Brookfield Asset Management, which kind of you can think of as the Canadian national champion of private equity. Um, he's also pledged his interests and his, like I said, is he the Matt Ishbia, kind of the front and center spokesperson, if you will, for the Ishbia family, right? Who developed, owned, operated UWMC over the years. He's now pledged his interests in other private equity businesses and future distributions from his Phoenix Suns basketball team to secure loans from JP Morgan, right? So you see there's like a power struggle here going on. I don't think JPM and Brookfield sit on the same side of that negotiation table. I think it's more
Yeah.
of the opposite here. So if you get into the details here, and I'm going to foot to what Christopher Whalen presented on his IRA post a couple of days ago. So this funding backstop that came in, so UWMC needed a capital injection. It raised 1.65 billion at the end of Q2. 1.5 billion came from Oaktree, and then the Ishbia family put in 150 million underneath that. The Oaktree position is senior, and then they're going to need further, let's just call it ammo. So part of this arrangement calls for, supposedly a rights offering in the fourth quarter, which intends to raise another 400 million. Unless, like, this is Christopher Whalen's numbers, unless the stock price gets above $2 by November, like it's unlikely that the secondary markets or like a new primary issuance through the common equity channel would go through, right? And if they can't raise that capital, then the deal says any amount over the of that 400 million that it doesn't raise, UWM can tap Oaktree, right? So this looks to me like, well, number one, obviously, this is a business with underlying problems. You can, if you want to read the full deep dive there's some issues, but like basically it comes down to the accounting. TLDR is the mortgage originations were held at booked at too high of values. There were a lot of cash withdrawals from the business taken out, by the owning family over the years, leaving it kind of a very thin equity cushion to ride out this tight pocket that we're seeing in mortgage markets. And so what it looks like to me here is, was Oaktree opportunistic, or was it kind of a supportive backstop all along? We don't know, but like right here, it looks like Oaktree, 100% owned by Brookfield, is stepping in as what we just call it, ultimate white knight, whatever, the backstop to keep this thing up and going. So massive things going on right now in the mortgage market. But if you think about this, if UWM is effectively like a business partner of Oaktree, US based asset manager, which is 100% owned by Canada's Brookfield. If you think about this in the big picture, like what we're going through or what we went through phase one, like with LIBOR, right? Taking away the pricing of the marginal dollar in the dollar system away from offshore, away from London, pulling it towards New York with SOFR. If that kind of reduction in foreign influence over U.S. capital markets as part of a bigger trend. I think one of the things you would be looking for is, um, as a next phase, would be like a roll up of, you know, mortgage markets, insurance markets, like the products that American households, like the financial products that American households need to, I mean, operate, save for retirement, get in your
Yeah,
house, offset, life insurance risk, all of that. Um,
the
part
direct
of
layer above that interest
Yeah.
rate. Yeah,
So I think what we're seeing here, a lot of pawns on the board are moving. They're in play. They're not the big picture, prize or deal that's being fought over. Like that's the U.S. Canada trade deal, where the big value, like at the upper levels of the pay grade, is going to be split. But I think this idea, if you're looking for the next step as that process that started with SOFR moves into its next phase, a cleanup of domestic insurance market and wholesale mortgage markets, that would be something you would think might be on the roadmap. So as
yeah.
we piece all these stories together, I know like sometimes it might just seem like that Pepe Sylvia meme, but when you're looking at the hard financial ties in this case with the UWM Oaktree Brookfield situation. Those are pretty real.
And
All
if
right.
you think Canada isn't somehow related,
Yeah, exactly. Look, all right. The headline here: August 2020, Brookfield announces the appointment of Mark Carney as they say here, vice chair and head of the ESG and Impact Fund. Um, he was the chairman of the board, is my understanding, which is a like talk about the high table, senior management, up top tier of pay grade or pay scale. That's that, right? And then
yep,
before that, he was the BOE chair, in the 2000s, 2010 era. So kind of get a sense as you connect all the dots what's going on here. But this is a massive deal for which way Canada goes for the 21st century. Um, they're really trying to split the middle. It seems to me, play China, play the U.S. Um, ultimately, those two supply chains and competing systems will have to integrate those base layer resources. I don't think either side will allow Canada to stay independent in the long run. It's go one way or the other. You've already got the EU, you've got the UK and Pax Silica. Um, Canada being the last holdout, I think is an interesting development to continue to watch.
yep, agreed.